Shuddering at the thought of the sleepy little town where she had been born and raised, she stared at the distant hills. There were too many painful memories in Gold Creek for her to ever want to stay there. Even though some families, like the Fitzpatricks and Monroes, seemed to spawn generation after generation of citizens of Gold Creek, Heather wasn't planning on putting her roots down in a town so small, so full of gossip. Her family, the Tremonts, had been the subject of the Gold Creek gossip mill for years. First, there had been her father and his affair with a younger woman. Eventually, her parents had divorced, her mother bitter and unhappy to this day, her father involved with his new young wife. And then there had been the incident involving Heather's sister, Rochelle, and the boy she had been involved with, Jackson Moore. Heather remembered all too vividly some of her mother's friends and how they'd whispered just loud enough so that Heather could catch a few of the key words. Never believe. All their hopes on that one, you know. No scholarship now. So hard on Ellen. Poor woman. First that no-good skirt-chasing husband, and now this. And the younger one doesn't have a lick of sense. If there's a God in heaven, that one will marry the Leonetti boy and give her mother some peace. Heather's cheeks had burned as she had heard the wagging tongues in the checkout line at the Safeway store, in the dining area of the Buckeye Restaurant and Lounge, and even on the porch of the church after services. There was no way she was going to spend the rest of her life trapped in Gold Creek. But ranch life? It wasn't a lot better. Though she planned on staying only for the summer, only until she had enough money to enroll in art school, only so that she didn't turn out to be one of those weak women who marry a man for his money to get what she wanted, only so she didn't feel compelled to marry Dennis Leonetti, son of one of the wealthiest bankers in Northern California. Heather tossed the old rag rug over the top rail of the fence and stared across the vast acres of the lazy K. Horses gathered in the shade of one lone pine tree, their tails switching at bothersome flies, their coats dull from rolling in the dusty corral. Sorrels, bays, chestnuts, and one single white gelding huddled together, picking at a few dry blades of grass or stomping clouds of dust. A hazy sun hovered over the ridge of mountains to the west, and she spied a lone rider upon the ridge, one of the ranch hands, no doubt. Squinting and shading her eyes with her hand, she tried to figure out which of the hands had chosen a solitary ride along Devil's Ridge. He was tall and wide-shouldered, though his broad chest angled to his slim waist. Against the blaze of a western sunset, he sat comfortably in the saddle, as if he'd been born to ride a horse. She could see only his silhouette, and try as she would, she couldn't recognize him. Her mind clicked off the cowboys she had met, but none of them seemed as natural in the saddle as this man. A breath of wind tugged at her hair and caused goosebumps to rise on her skin as the stranger twisted in the saddle and seemed to look straight down at her. But that was impossible. He was much too far away. Nonetheless, her heart leapt to her throat, and she couldn't help wondering who he was. He kicked his mount and disappeared into the forest, leaving Heather with the impression that he hadn't even existed, that he was just a figment of her healthy and romantic imagination. Her palms had begun to sweat. Nervously, she wiped her hands down the front of her apron. "Heather, you about ready to clean this kitchen?" Maisie's crow-like voice cawed through the open window of the ranch house. Heather jumped. Guiltily, she yanked the rug off the fence and shook the blasted thing frantically as if the fabric were infested with snakes. Dust swirled upward and caught in her throat. She coughed and sputtered and beat the life out of the rug. "You hear me, girl?" "In a minute," Heather called over her shoulder. "I'll be right there." "Well, mind that you get in here afore midnight, you hear?" Maisie insisted, mumbling something about city girls more interested in cowboys than in hard work. She slammed the window shut so hard the panes rattled. Swiping at her sweaty forehead, Heather hauled the dusty rug back to the ranch house. She hurried up the steps, through the long back porch and into the kitchen, where other girls were scouring pots and pans.